minorities, right? Unless you're like Taman's son that forced to study Mandarin and then go to Hwa Chong or whatever. But for the vast majority of minorities, they can't just access these schools. Right? It's actually impossible for them to do so. So that's why I say it's actually possible for you to grow up never having interacted with a minority. Because you're not going to talk to a random person on the street. And if you never eat Malay food or Indian food, you don't actually have to talk to a minority.
Because you never order from them.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, my same school has a Muslim store.
Yeah, but because there are Muslim teachers in Hwa Chong, that's about it.
Hwa Chong, primary school.
Or primary school, okay. So, yes, it works, but for a number of people who go to these top schools, imagine if you study in like, I don't know, Nanyang Primary, and then you go up all the way, right? And then you end up in like, I don't know, NUS Law. Very few minorities there, certainly no Malay people. There are like 2 maybe every batch. Right?
The stereotype is there will be a lot of Indians.
Yeah, sure, maybe Indians. But then you have never spoken to a Malay person, you don't know anything about Malay people. Right? And if you live in Bukit Timah, where are you going to find a Malay person? Right? To be brutally honest. So don't you think that that's a problem, that you will grow up becoming an adult and never having talked to someone Malay? Right? So yes, it works. One possible motion / policy can be things like ethnic quotas even in classrooms. Right? For example, I went to a neighborhood school, but I was the only Indian guy in the express stream. Literally, only Indian guy. Because my school name was Hawaii Secondary School. So I did not know it was again a Chinese history. But yeah. So, okay, that summarizes my long rant on race. Any questions?
I feel like this will later be linked to the inequality. Because a lot of things is like
Linked. Yeah, correct. But you understand race first, then we'll talk about specific like cases in like politics with like GRC system, inequality, race, or what stems to what extent can it be attributed to race?
A lot of the issues that the NUS law one stems to the fact that the minorities are not doing well.
Correct. I agree. We will definitely get to it. Right? That's why this is supposed to be a quite a long lecture. Okay?
A lot of Muslim teams here.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
None of the Nusra team is here. In the like, is it in terms of microaggressions, right? What like is the? I feel that the line is extremely thin, though.
What do you mean?
In terms of what is and is not viewed as a microaggression. Because like from what I've read about microaggressions overseas pertaining to Asian minorities, is that even simple questions like, would you like rice or noodles, can be considered a microaggression.
Yeah, because the assumption is I will only like to choose from these 2 choices.
But what if they're like...
If you go to an Asian restaurant, right, the fella asks you, would you like rice or noodles? Obviously those are 2 choices, right? But if you go out with a friend to eat, in general, right, would you like rice or noodles? It's a microaggression because they assume that the assumption is Asian people only eat rice or noodles. That's the assumption, and that's why it's a microaggression. So it stems from ignorance forming a particular stereotype. In the same way, again, asking me, right, are you Singaporean? And then following up with, were you born and bred in Singapore? I'm like, you want me to show you my 11B, is it? Right? So like, because the assumption is Singaporeans don't look like me. That's the assumption. Right? Or, are you even Indian? I'm like, because there's an assumption that Indian people, like, I don't know, wear those shirts from Mustafa and like smell a certain way, have a beer can in the hand. Like, what? Really, do you expect Indian people to look a particular way? That's the assumption, that's why that's a microaggression. Right? So, as long as you can trace it back to So what you need to do, right, is you need to question the underlying assumption. Why that question was made. Because that's how communication works. Right? We shorten communications because or how we shorten communication, we make certain assumptions about people. Right? And that's how we get ideas across very quickly, or we try to find out things very quickly. Right? So as opposed to asking someone what would you like to eat, you ask themselves, would you like rice or noodle? Why is it these two choices? Right? Or asking an African American person, so where do you want to get fried chicken? Right? Assuming that he or she only wants to eat fried chicken. Right? So it's not like flat out racism, but you need to understand the culmination of being questioned in this way, or having statements made about you, right, attached to assumptions about your identity, destroys your ability to form your own identity, to shape who you are as a person. Right? Remember how Alfred talked about that whole human rights lecture, identity lecture, right? They probably, has he not done that?
I was never in the club. I wasn't in the club at the time.
Okay, but you have run those arguments, so
yeah.
presumably you have heard those arguments, right? So that's the same thing, right? You're reducing me to a stereotype, right? That does not necessarily have terrible consequences, right? You ask me if I ask you if you want rice or noodles, it doesn't destroy your life. But if you get that constantly, you get comments of a similar nature constantly, right? It prevents you from enjoying life or like interacting with people in a way that you feel comfortable, right? Does that make sense?
Does
Yes.
sarcasm count as microaggression?
What do you mean?
I mean, like when the first example you gave, like, wow, so smart.
I think it depends on the context in which this occurs, right? So when you go to NS, for example, or even in the classroom, with certain friends, some jokes of a racial nature or like references to your religion or culture or whatever are okay. But it's very dependent on the context, right? So if you know that those jokes are okay, and you know for certain that they're okay, I mean, of course, some people might not believe it's ever okay to make such jokes. Some do, right? So there's a debate there. But to answer your question in terms of real life advice, it depends on the person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about race and whatever I've talked about so far? You perhaps want me to explain more? No? Okay, good. Was this, okay, this so far, has it been enlightening? Okay, sure. Okay, so I think we'll move on to politics first, because that's the next biggest topic.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll talk about first. I'm going to give you a history, or a short. Okay, not a 50-year history of Singapore's politics, but I'm going to talk about the last 10, no, not even 10 years, maybe 15 years, okay, of politics and developments in the. Actually, no, 20 years. Sorry. Right? I'm going to give you a brief rundown of the political parties, because I don't think you are familiar. Or can anyone name me 3 political opposition parties?
WP.
Workers' Party, Singapore Independence Party, and
Singapore Independence Party.
SDP,
SDP, Democratic Party.
Democratic Party.
National Solidarity Party,
Actually, there's
still got
Okay.
still the Angmo one, the Angmo one.
Ang Mo one.
That is Angmo dude. Then the reporter said, don't compare anymore, Singapore.
You don't know who that guy is, right? And you don't know why he's relevant, right?
He's white.
He's not. He's half white.
It's half white.
Right? And he's the son of a famous opposition politician.
David Marshall? They was a baby. What?
No.
Bro,
the guy
David Marshall is how dead.
The
How
guy,
dead is David?
the guy that you call Angmo, his name is Kenneth Jeranam,
Where?
son of Joshua Benjamin Jeranam, otherwise known as JBJ. You might have heard his name be perhaps mentioned by your parents, right? Anyway, so okay, opposition parties, right? You need to be familiar with them, really. So WP, Workers' Party, SPP, right? Singapore People's Party,
Oh.
right? So I'm going to talk about them in order of like
Relevant.
pretty much, right? Importance, relevance. Perhaps now there's PSP,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Perhaps I don't know whether it will be relevant.
What party is that?
Congress of Singapore is the by
The Touch and Box Party.
Yeah.
Oh, the new one.
Yeah. Then all the rest, all the useless. Okay.
Yeah.
The next one is probably SDP, right? SDP.
And others.
Oh yeah, the rest are just trash. Like
You know,
trash.
the pastors from the
Yeah,
one,
I don't
just
even know
trash
what they
you.
do.
I just remember last
And
time.
there was one
that
time, one party was stupid enough to give a three contest run. That's when every party was stupid enough
No,
to
no,
give
no, no.
a three contest.
SDP. Okay. So
This one. STB is children, right?
what?
STB is children, right?
Yes, correct. Okay. So I'm going to sit down because I'm tired. Let's start with the workers.
first.
Okay, let's start with the Workers' Party. And it's important for you to understand